Hey guys, it's Susan. Welcome back to my channel, Hot Mess Quilter. In this video, we're going to be loading quilts onto the Grace QZone Hoop Frame Pro. I've had a couple requests for this video, so if you're interested, keep watching. Okay guys, so the first thing we're going to do is I have a practice size quilt. I'm going to show you how to load onto the QZone Hoop Frame Pro. I leave my frame like this with the machine on the carriage all the time. So it really needs a good cleaning, probably. We'll do that here shortly. So when you sandwich your quilt, you typically have extra background material, and that's important when we're loading our quilts. So this particular one is going to be wide enough that it'll take up the majority of the frame, but I don't have to overlap or anything, and I'll show you what happens if you have a bigger quilt. So I have my background right here. So I have extra backing material. If you have extra batting, that's cool. You can include that too. And it's going to go over this back bar. So I just center it for the first time and see how that goes. Now the QZone comes with these clamps like this. There are these ties, I don't know what you call them. They're stretchable. They help your quilt as it begins to roll up. So you want to make sure that you center these particular clamps in between each one of those ties. Once you get it, bring the tie forward, tuck the string end of the string in, because I sewed that to the back of my quilt the other day. They said it would happen. They didn't lie. You can tighten and adjust these particular clamps. So there's 3. So we're going to keep coming across the back. There's clamp number 2. Any excess, you just fold it over. This is going to be the start of our roll. Bring this guy up. I'm actually missing one, so ignore that. I'm going to tuck my quilt underneath my machine, move my machine over, and put the final clamp on right here. And bring these adjustable pieces up. Okay. Now remember, my quilt is currently sandwiched. And if I had done a really good job, I would have probably pinned along the top. Now, the sides are kind of loose. They don't quite touch the frame. So what my solution there is these clamps. They come with the QZone. I do have additional clamps that go on the side. I put it upside down and I attach this particular clamp with this piece onto this clamp. This guy looks like a computer mouse a little bit. He goes on there, and I take the side and attach it right there, and I'm going to come over and do that same thing to the other side. I want to make sure that I'm getting the backing, the batting, and the top of my material in this clamp, so I don't have any issues with puckering or anything while I am actually quilting. Okay. So I got that guy on there. You can adjust it as needed. So I'm going to put the 2 big clamps on next. All right, and so they look like this. They have the Grace Company logo, so I know that it's going to go this way and not this direction. All right, and it just literally slips right onto the bar like that. And there's 2 of those. Okay. And I'm going to put the next one on here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about tension. So when you, and we've discussed this in other videos, when you're loading your frame onto your quilt, you should be able to poke your finger from up above and grab up to the first knuckle. All right, I'm a little bit beyond that. So I know that I want to work on getting my tension a little bit better. I can ratchet these back bars by moving them, and also these front ones, and all I simply do is turn them inward, and that tightens that up. Too taut, you're going to have needle and thread breakage. Too loose, you're going to have yucky tension. All right, and then once you have all that good to go, what I do is take the pins out in the area that I'm working on. So I'll take these pins out from the bottom because I've loaded this guy upside down. Okay, it happens. Smooth everything out. Choose what area I'm going to start quilting on. Typically, I usually start from one side to the next and then work my way down. You can start in the middle, just like you would if you were free motion quilting on your machine with your hands, like so. You can start in the middle, work your way out. Now, there are some limitations. Let me show you. The machine does not go, the carriage, I guess I should say, does not go all the way to the end. Let me see how much you're seeing here. Let me zoom in a little bit. So, as you can see, my machine is stopped right there. Sometimes it's because of this clamp. You can lift the clamp up, but this is as far as the carriage goes. So there's probably about 4 to 5 inches of material left. So I just quilt the area that I can. When I'm finished, I can take this quilt off the rack, turn it so that lengthwise I can mount it back on the rack again. So let's do that because I'm going to show you what happens when you have a quilt bigger than this 5-foot frame. Okay, so let's say you have a quilt longer than your 5-foot frame. Let's say you're doing a twin size or a full size and it hangs over the frame like so. So can you still quilt on this machine? You can. It just means you have to make adjustments. So I kind of just have tried a few different things and here's what works best for me. I will actually bring the quilt over like this. All right, let me clamp it in place and let's talk about it. I also look at the front, the draping of the quilt, because that's how I know I'm keeping it even. So let me back up here a little bit. So I look at the bottom of the quilt. If it's even, good, I'll clamp everything down. I see that I need to drop this corner a little bit, but this is my guide to knowing that I'm getting good, significant rows. So if I'm quilting a pattern that I might need a little symmetry, that's going to be super important. All right, boy, this piece is super wrinkly. You guys, please don't ever load a quilt on that is that wrinkly. Okay, so I'm going to start clamping the back on. All right. And I'll show you how this rolls up. So any extra, or as I am progressing in my quilting, all the extra quilt gets rolled up like so. And then I can secure my clamps. Make sure you tuck that little end in. And we're going to continue on down the line. Okay. The last 2 adjustable clamps, tucking the ends of that elastic in. And we'll talk a little bit about what to do here. I'm going to attach my side clamp over here because I have quite a bit of backing and I want that to be pretty snug. All right, so I've attached my side clamp that looks like the computer mouse on this side. I'm checking the front of my quilt. Everything looks pretty even. So I'm going to put my front ratchet clamps on. There's 1, and there is 2, and I'm going to tighten that up just a smidge. I can always put my hand underneath, check it. That looks pretty good. So as you can see, I have quilt left over. You may have a lot that drapes way over the edge if you're working on a really big quilt. So how do you manage this? Well, you take that side clamp that we put on upside down, take it off. Okay, it's right here. You take the draped material over the side, and then this clamp attaches here, and you can ratchet that for more tension. And then I have adjusted my quilt enough that I can start right on the edge of the quilt. So I have my quilt laid out where I am going to have quite a bit hanging over the edge for the entire time I'm progressing up the quilt. However, I am able to start quilting right on the edge of the left-hand side. You could do it right or left, it doesn't really matter. And then make sure that your material is nice and smooth. This practice quilt is so wrinkled. Oh my gosh, terrible. Okay, so that's how that looks. The bottom of my quilt looks pretty even. And then anything that's left over and dragging on the right side, I am just securing with this clamp. When I'm finished with the portion that I'm working on, I take all these clamps off, roll the quilt up, put these clamps on and the tension clamps, and continue to roll. This roll on the back gets bigger, obviously, as you're progressing through your quilt. So you're going to begin to notice, especially with the JazzII, that you lose some quilting space. So currently I have probably about 8 or 9 inches. As this roll back here gets bigger, I'm probably going to be losing an inch or 2. All right, so just keep that in mind. Now, as I said, when I'm finished with this and I want to do the section of the quilt that's been hanging over the frame the whole time, I take all these clamps off. I can either just scoot it down or I can turn it and flip it the other way. It's pretty basic. I don't know any super fancy tips or tricks, but if you have questions, put them below and I'll try to answer them for you. And we'll be doing some free motion quilting very soon with Aurifil thread. Okay guys, I hope you found that a little bit helpful. I'm certainly no professional here, and I'm not a representative for Baby Lock or Grace Company or anything like that. But I'm just trying to share what little bit of knowledge that I have gleaned by actually doing practicing. So that leads me to my next point. I thought about all the questions and the things that arose while I was practicing. So my first piece of advice to you is make some practice quilts and practice. You're going to discover things that you'll be like, how do I troubleshoot that? And you can figure that on your own. The biggest issues for me was when the carriage reached the end, how do I know where that line is? I could mark it with a indelible ink or one of those heat transfer pens. I've been known to use a piece of thread or a piece of yarn to kind of mark where my boundaries and my guidelines are, so that when I get to the edge of my quilting pattern, I'm just not hitting the brakes and getting a weird shape or a little thread burr or something like that. So certainly you can mark up your quilt so that you know where your parameters are when you're quilting. That was one of my big issues. And I learned that by practicing. So I can't encourage you enough to make a practice quilt, put it on there, try out different threads that you like, and kind of see where the limits are when you're using a domestic machine and how you can troubleshoot that. I am happy to answer any questions. I'm no professional, like I said, but I am on my 4th practice quilt. My husband finally said, when are we going to put a real quilt on? I think that's going to be my next project. And I'm going to try Aurifil thread. So I want to do a little bit of practicing first with that. But anyway, where was I going with this? So I just encourage you to make a practice piece, load it on there, and let me know how it goes. Please come back to this video. Drop some comments below. Let me know if there's any other questions or any other future videos I can help you with. And until next time, that's it. We'll probably be doing some more free motion quilting with our Baby Lock JazzII and the QZone hoop frame soon. So until next time, bye-bye.